please kind of bear with us if the server is a little bit slow today. We'll get through it one way or another. I'm working on the same server you guys are, so it's on my screen as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on a couple of slides. A couple of GTRI quick facts. Avi Abraham, he hit on these as well. GTRI itself, this is the marketing material, by the way. We'll get into the real stuff a little bit later. I'm not a marketing guy. I'm an engineer, so I kind of gloss over some of this stuff. Anyway, we have a lot of federal qualifications. We're a solution-oriented consulting company. So we're not Splunk itself. We're a Splunk partner. And we provide both licensing, we provide professional services, and we also provide training. So those are the three areas. If you have any questions or needs on that front, we'd be happy to help you on that. So just let us know. I'll put my email in the chat message here real quick. All participants, here we go. And if you ever need to get a hold of me, that's how you can get a hold of me, and we'll see if we can set you up with what you need. Generally speaking, Avi's here to help me out. We've got, right now, we have 35 people on the call. There were over 65 actually signed up, so I don't really have time to answer all the questions that come through. So if you have a question, if you could direct those to Avi and see, especially with connectivity and issues of that nature, if you can go ahead and direct them that way, that will allow me to kind of concentrate on getting the material out to everybody. And I'll answer questions as well as I can as far as during lab times and things, but I'm going to concentrate on delivering the material so everyone gets the value out of it. This is a class that has a hands-on portion. We have a live lab, so there will be times during the call where the line will be completely silent, and you'll have a chance to go and play with the implementation out there. I encourage you to do that. It's really easy to install Splunk itself, but it's not so easy to have all the data pulled in the right formats in order to play and see what things like enterprise security can do, or just even core Splunk. So I'd encourage you to do that. We'll keep the server up and running until later on tonight, probably about 10 o'clock or so my time, which is Mountain Standard or Mountain Daylight Time. I'm in the Denver, Colorado area, so that would put it at 10 o'clock. Would put it at 9 o'clock Pacific, and it would put it at midnight Eastern time. So got plenty of time to play with it afterwards and work the labs. If you haven't downloaded the materials, I would make sure you do that. The slides that we're presenting today are in that material that you can download. There's also two other documents, well, three other documents. Yeah, there's more than that, but three of them to talk about. One of which is the logins, and let me just go ahead and change my screen over real quick to show you kind of what that looks like. It has your first and last name, those of you who registered, and I pulled this, or this was pulled off, I think Avi has actually pulled it off last night. So if your name isn't on here, check with Avi and he'll assign you a particular user, and then you can go from there. And the reason we want each person to have their own user name is you have your own sandbox. You don't have to worry about other people stepping on the work that you do. So eventually we'll get to there. The URL is on the document as well. So note that it's HTTPS on there, and so let me get my little pointer here. There you go, HTTPS, so that when you get there, we'll hit that, and we'll get everyone set up later. I wanted to note that document is out there. Another document that's out there is actually the labs. So there are two versions of the labs. One version has just the regular text. The other has the answers in it. So you can pick up either one. I'd say pick up both, and you can consult it as you need to. So pick up the information, and then we'll go from there. And when we log in, we'll catch any questions on the first lab. First lab is mainly connectivity. Make sure you can get connected. Sometimes we do have problems if you're on a site that blocks traffic out to. This is actually a server out on the Amazon Cloud, AWS Cloud. So if you can't get to it, there may not be much we can do about it if there's a firewall rule in your way. So hopefully most people won't experience that, and we can just keep moving on, and you can play with it as we go. I have no problem with you guys working ahead, with you guys playing with the server while I'm talking. This is meant to be time that's useful for you. All right. A little more marketing material. We have a bunch of partners at GTRI. We're a big partner with Cisco. You can see Cisco's all around this wheel. But we're also a Splunk Elite partner, one of the first in the U.S. And our Splunk practice overview, here's what I just said. We have over 5 certified architects, solution engineers, certified training center, 60 certifications. So we have a pretty strong Splunk presence. Let's see. More marketing material. It's a lot of what I just said. So we are not, GTRI is not Splunk itself. A couple of times I'll probably tell you a little bit, a little cleaner story than you might get from the marketing material from Splunk, just because I've been in the field and I know how things work. So sometimes things are glossed over a bit and it's a little more complicated than the marketing material would want you to understand. So we'll give you a straight story and we'll just go through the material. All right. Some common ground. Make sure we understand kind of where we're starting. This is not necessarily meant to be an intro camp, just starting from scratch. Don't panic if you don't have some of the background and don't know a bit. You'll do just fine. But it is helpful to understand a little bit of what we're talking about when we say the search head, the indexer, the forwarder, things of that nature, what an index is, what an event is. We're not going to go, we'll explain things as we go, but we're not going to spend much time on it. So if you don't have a lot of experience with Splunk, you'll still get value out of this, but it's helpful to have a little more. We do have another camp, boot camp called Splunk Bootcamp for Cisco. That's meant to be an intro level class. We kind of go in and look at the UI and the little pieces and how you navigate around a little more than we do here. So another thing is since this is an enterprise security bootcamp, we assume that you know a bit about firewalls and security logs and vulnerability scans and things like that. Again, don't panic. You'll do okay. It's just helpful to know some of those things. On a couple of the slides, you see these little taglines. Those actually are lines that come up. Sometimes you see them on the T-shirts that Splunk gives out. They're also originally, I do believe, they are on the command line when you start up Splunk from the shell, from the Unix shell or a Linux shell. It actually puts out a message of the day, and that's what some of these are. So some of them are pretty clever. I'm not going to touch on them that much, but that's where they came from. So our goals today. First question is why use Splunk for security? Then we're going to look at both core Splunk for a security use case, and we're going to look at enterprise security as well. We'll do a little bit of a tour of that. We do have the Splunk app for enterprise security installed on the server that you're going to be looking at. It is actually a paid app. It's one of their premium apps. So you can't just download it and look at it. So this is one of the few chances, if you don't already own it, that you can actually go out and look at it and see what it can do and see how to use it. So the idea is to get a little bit hands-on experience of using Splunk in a security use case. So here's kind of the agenda we've got. We've got three hands-on labs on the way through, and then we're going to look at the state of security. We're going to look at core Splunk and enterprise security. So I'll probably go through the state of security reasonably quickly because I think most people on the call probably already have a good experience and understand the concepts that are there. But I do want to touch on them just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Again, lab access, the HTTPS, bootcamp.gtritraining.com. Be careful with the logins. I'm going to go back to the login screen. The password itself, the original password, that's a GTR1. That's not an I. An STU1. So that's a 1, and then the sequential number on the way up. Some people get kind of hung up on that. So experience shows us that it's good to explain it. There's always at least one question. I can't log in, and it always seems to work. We spin it up from an image, so the image seems to work and has in the past. So I assume it will today. But if you have any problems, let Avi know, and he'll help you out. This one is because ninjas are too busy. I actually have that t-shirt. I've got way too many Splunk t-shirts. You tend to accumulate them after a while. All right, so let's talk about GTRI, or the security problem. Not the GTRI security problem, but security problems in general. The real issue anymore is advanced threats, and we have a lot of them in the headlines. Target is one of the latest ones that come through, all sorts of data breaches, and so everyone knows how important that is. And we have the nation states with the with the Snowden type of collections, and so we all know that that there are lots of vulnerabilities, and they can have wide-ranging implications. The other thing is the insider threat. There's a lot of issues from the inside. It's not necessarily just keeping your firewall or keeping people off your system. It's actually people on the inside as well. So you have to kind of look at the activity. So security, it gets a little more complicated than the naive approach of saying just keep the bad people out. A lot of times I won't call them bad people, but some threats start from inside. It may just be someone downloading material that has malware that will expose your system. So we all know that security is an issue. It's a little bit. This quote is a little bit pessimistic, but I think it's reasonably accurate to some degree. You are compromised. You just don't know it. I don't like to think that negatively, but the fact of the matter is there are probably vulnerabilities, and you probably are open to some attacks, and you may actually have some issues going on at some level. I think we need to assume that that's where we're at, that we're never completely clean, that we keep it as clean as possible of things coming in, but we need to always monitor what's there to see if there is a threat that is inside your system currently. And again, it can be an insider threat to which you are always, to some degree, vulnerable to. The other point that's well taken, in my mind, is that prevention eventually fails, and that's the way you can work as far as much as you want to keep people out, but eventually someone's going to find a way in, and you need to detect those as well. So it's not just a matter of keeping people out; it's reacting to what's happened to your system and the state that it's in currently. So the advanced threats are hard to detect, and these are some stats that we put out in there. They're a little bit revealing as far as what you're looking at. In this particular set of data, 100% of the use cases that were looked at, valid credentials were used. So you're not going to look for someone hacking in weird ways. That it was actually compromised using valid credentials one way or another, whether it's social engineering or other ways. The median days before detection, what, 2/3 of a year, something like that? It's a lot. I mean, they've been in for a long time before they get detected. And the one that I really think is telling is this last one on the bottom corner. 63% of the victims were notified by an external entity. And when we say external entity, we mean the FBI or some other regulatory agency. And once you're notified in that sense, you lose a lot of control over the marketing and the addressing of the problem. So if you can find it yourself, you're much better off than having someone knock on your door and tell you you've got a problem. So the idea is that we need to look at security. We know security is an issue. We need to assume that something is there, and we need to make sure we're the ones that find it, as opposed to an external entity. And so this was actually footnoted down here where these came from, 2012-13. So the Splunk solution says that all data is security relevant, which puts it in the realm of big data. A traditional SIEM, looking at your information, they mainly look at firewalls, look at your authentication data, they look at intrusion detection. All of these different things are traditional sources of data to look at, and a traditional SIEM looks at these type pieces of information, but usually it's specifically at these pieces of information. There's not looking at information beyond that. Splunk likes to take a bigger view of the picture, saying that there's a lot of, like a badge reading system. If someone's accessing your network who isn't in the building, that's actually interesting to know. Now maybe they tailgated in or some other way, but that provides extra information that you can use. But a traditional SIEM doesn't usually pick up. The traditional solutions don't use. So the other thing is that traditional SIEMs focus on a specific set of known problems, and they update their software as new problems become apparent and they see different systems. That doesn't help you look back into the past most of the time. if you're using something like Splunk and collecting all the data, you will have all of that information in the past, and once you detect a new type of threat, first of all, you don't have to wait until the manufacturer gets a patch out or gets an update out on their system. You actually can go and look for it immediately and see what's going on. And you can look through all the data you've got. You can look through different emails going back and forth. You can look at all the network flows. You can look at performance data. You can look at whatever people that have come in off of mobile devices. So you've got all the pieces of information there, and that's what Splunk deals very well with, is dealing with big data. One of the big problems with the traditional SIEMs is they do very well in their own little world. They tend to be within their own manufacturer. Like Cisco will do very well with Cisco hardware, but most people don't just have Cisco hardware. They have a heterogeneous environment of some sort. And so when you start getting outside of Cisco, your Cisco tools don't work as well. So you end up having lots and lots of tools. They work very well in their own little silos, but they don't look at the entire picture, and they don't usually capture what's going on in your enterprise because they don't have all the pieces they need. The other thing is they usually aren't engineered for big data. What they will do is they will take their data, they will summarize it, and then put it off in a database somewhere. So it's not all of the data, it's a subset of the data. So Splunk tries to look at all the data and keep all the data. It's actually designed as a big data product, as opposed to trying to put something in a relational database that eventually you may have to change the schema on, and that becomes a really messy problem, or a hard problem to solve from at least a logistics standpoint. So that brings us up to our first lab. So our first lab is set out to just mainly get connectivity, and there's a few activities after that. So let me just bring up the lab doc real quickly. Actually, I'm getting my Bootcamp confused. In the Cisco one, it's just connectivity. In this one, we've actually combined it a little bit. So the first task is to open a browser and go to the actual URL. And you log in and you edit your account and change your password and time zone if you want. The main thing I really want you to do is change your password, because I've published that list over here, this list of passwords. So anybody can get in right now and mess with your sandbox. As soon as you change your password, you lock it down to be only you. So that kind of makes things a little more secure, and just people have weird questions when things are changing behind the scenes because two people are working in the same environment. So it just makes things easier to go ahead and change that password. So then you're going to create you're going to start creating a security dashboard and putting a couple of things in there. So looking through some data, and so the actual lab, I think, there's 2 pages. Let me see what's on the third. Yeah, so it's 3 pages long as far as in the document. So you get to the end of the page, you're not done yet. So there's 14 steps. So I'm going to give you about 10, let's go with 10 minutes or so, and I'll kind of check back in and see how people are doing. Big thing right now is to make sure you have connectivity, and let us know if you don't, and we can see if we can solve all those problems. So usually it works pretty smoothly, but occasionally you have some issues. So it is 26 after, so I'm going to check back in with everybody at 36 after, and let me put that up here just so everyone knows. Check back at 36 after. Do this. 36, because everyone's in a different time zone. Check back at, if I can type. And then we'll see how we're doing. Okay, so there'll be about 10 minutes of dead air, and just ask questions and let us know your problems. Check with you in a bit. 36 after the hour. I said to check back. I'm not necessarily thinking you need to be done at this point, but I was just wanting to see if you could use the WebEx tools, communication tools. If you look in the upper right-hand side, there's a yes, no. There's a green check mark, and there's a little drop down that you can pull down. It says yes. I'm going to turn mine to the green check mark, and then turn it over to the red no. So I just wanted some feedback to see how people are doing. Who is ready? If you're ready to go on, if you could just put in a green check mark, and that'll give me a little bit of a feel. I know we won't be able to wait for everybody, but give me a feel how we're doing. Got a couple of green checks. People are still working. So I'll give you another couple of minutes till about 40 after the hour, and we'll pick up and move on from there. All right, I've got about 40 after here, so we will go ahead and move on. Let me publish something here real quick. I'll share my screen. When I share my screen, by the way, things will flash on your interface. I'm going to change something here real quick. All right. So share application. So it'll make your screen flash a bit, but I'm going to share my actual browser out here, just to let you know that you aren't the only one on the system, and that this is a real-time system, and we're actually looking at stuff. I thought I'd just give you a quick view of the server activity. These are all the student accounts that are going right now, and so we've got significant activity on the server. We're doing okay. We've got a bunch of searches going on. But just to let you know that, yeah, you've got a bunch of people with you, 3 pages worth of people online and doing activity. So it's kind of fun. Splunk is a fun system in the sense that it's kind of neat to see this information just pop up, that you can actually go out there and you can look at the information as it happens. So that's another neat benefit of Splunk. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the slides real quick. Hope people were able to get most of that lab done. Avi, if you get a chance, if you could clear the check mark, if you remember how to do that. Only the host can do that. So if you get a chance, go ahead and do that, and I can ask another question in the future. All right. So we're back to the slides over here. That window, and off we go. Splunk is used for mainly client security use cases, and they all make sense. There's incident investigations, security and compliance. That's actually how I work with my 12 terabyte instance, is that we were doing a security and compliance originally, and it migrated from there. Real-time monitoring of known threats. Real-time monitoring of unknown threats is a little trickier in the sense that if you don't know what you're looking for, how do you know you're looking? So, but people are out there looking for it, trying to understand what's going on, and it's more of a manual activity sometimes. It comes down to fraud detection. So those are the big ones. A lot of companies have solutions for one or more of these categories. Splunk can do them all, but it doesn't have to. And as a consultant coming into a site, my recommendation is if you've got something that works, use it. Don't try to replace it necessarily. Some people have the goal of replacing everything with one application, and that's fine if that's your goal, but it's not really a necessary thing. You can have Splunk augment what you're doing, and you can pull the data in from that particular application that you're using. For example, if you have some real-time monitoring systems in place, just use Splunk to augment it. It's not something that has to be an all or nothing thing. Splunk is a platform, really, when it comes down to it. A platform for being able to develop security, in our case, develop a security application. It's actually a horizontal tool. It's much wider than security. You can do a whole bunch of other things, but right now we're concentrating on the security aspect of it. And so, yeah, use it for pieces that are causing you pain, to solve your pain point. You don't necessarily have to solve the world with it right up front. And I know several sites that I've gone to that they do that. They use it as an augmentation of their current systems, and then slowly they start replacing things as they have time and as it makes sense. So you don't have to think of Splunk as an invasive tool taking over everything. Splunk would like to sell as much licensing as possible, and just to refresh your memory or let you know if you don't, that Splunk is licensed by the amount of information that is indexed by Splunk. So it has nothing to do with how many times you read it, doesn't matter how many people look at it, how long you keep the data. It's all about how much you are indexing, how much you bring into Splunk itself. So while you're bringing information into Splunk, you might as well use it for all the purposes you can. So you can search through it. Marketing can search through it for certain things. Security can search through it for other things. So it's a horizontal solution, but you want to get as much data, or as much value out of your data as you can once you pull it into Splunk. So that said, if you have a particular pain point, solve that pain point and then move on. And if it makes sense to move it into, to have it take over the function of a different tool, then do that. But it doesn't necessarily have to go that way. Some people think it's an all or nothing type thing, and it really isn't. It comes down to it. So we were talking just a minute ago that Splunk is core Splunk itself, without an application. So Splunk has the concept of putting in applications. An application is kind of a collection of searches and displays and what they call in Splunkies knowledge objects, things that you develop, and it's all kind of bundled together. You don't need any of that to do Splunk for security. There is a Splunk for enterprise security application. It does a great job. There's a lot of information in it.
It's the bullet point 3 down here. It's not necessary. I mean, it does give you a big leg up on things. What you get when you get the app for enterprise security is you get a lot of expertise that was built into it. There's been, I don't know how many lines, I heard something like 1 million lines of code in it or something like that. There's a lot of correlation searches. So if you're not an expert at the 15 different log files that you pull in your environment and know that the 3rd number in the first log file matches the 10th number in the 2nd log file, you know how all those correlate, then something like enterprise security has done all that work for you, has correlated all those fields. So an IP in one log file may be a source IP, maybe another IP that's in another log file may also be a source IP, and you can correlate on those. But it may be a destination IP, so if you correlate on them, it will not be accurate. So you get that expertise when you buy an application. So it's a good value as far as that goes. It's not necessarily cheap. It's sold by the licensing volume, so it's a percentage of your license. So that's the model they use for it. But you don't need to have an application. It's not doing anything that you couldn't write on your own. It's just a lot of work has gone into it to make it consistent and get all the bugs out. So that's what you're purchasing with that. And so I don't want to minimize the value of Splunk for enterprise security, but I also don't want to say unless you have Splunk for enterprise security, Splunk is worthless, because it's definitely not. We're going to go through a couple of core Splunk searches, and we'll show you that it's useful just right out of the box. So, and the fact of the matter is, even if you have Splunk for enterprise security, if you drill down deep enough in there, if you click on things enough and you can keep drilling down, you will eventually end up in core Splunk. It will give you a leg up. It'll narrow things down to a certain thing, but you'll end up in core Splunk at the end anyway to look at things. So core Splunk is a good tool to do both, to do all your searches, to correlate, to alerts, do reporting, and do dashboarding. So the other thing is with a application, the screens may not be exactly what you want. Well, you can build an application on your own that will be exactly what you want. So pluses and minuses, but core Splunk itself is a security workbench that you can use, and you don't have to worry about buying an app unless you see value in it. So I just want to pull out one of the big functions of core Splunk is the functionality of alerting. It's not particularly complex, but it's something that's incredibly handy. So if you write a search, in this case, it's hard to read this search, but it's looking at the IPS secure host, it's looking at the Unix password files, access attempts. And so if you can set up an alert so that it will take that search and run it on a schedule. You can schedule it. This particular dialog, when you go through it, has run every hour, run every day at 15 minutes. Well, if you go through a different UI area, you can actually get to a cron schedule. So if you're familiar with cron, you can do anything you want with cron as far as scheduling it. So I don't want this to imply that it's limited to these certain little increments of how you can schedule it. So it's very flexible as what you can schedule. You can have it trigger for all sorts of conditions, the number of results, if the results have increased by, if they've decreased by, and then you can put a threshold on it, and you can have it do actions. By default, the easiest action to do is to send you an email. And you can set the subject on the email, so you can filter it with Outlook or whatever you want to do to see the ones you want, and reference the others if you want to as well. So that's incredibly handy, because what that does is that changes you from a reactive standpoint of going and searching through the data to be proactive, and it will alert you when something happens. In this case, if you have an excessive number of Unix password file access attempts in your logs, then you can have it alert you, and you can go investigate. You can go and see what's going on. So core Splunk in general will allow you to do things like that. Anything you can write a search for, you can put an alert on. And you can build an incredibly informative system of alerts by thinking through how you want to set your subject lines up. Maybe you want it to check every day for disk space. Maybe that's something that you wanted to do. And it's not a security use case, but it's set up for looking to see if it's above 80% of the disk. You want to be notified so someone doesn't run it into the ground.
you can do that. Or in this case, password access attempts. You'd also look at how many things are getting denied at the firewall, if you wanted to, and say, because someone might be trying to hack in. You don't care if they're blocked, perhaps, but maybe you do. So you can set up your own system, whatever makes sense for you. It's all in core Splunk. So when you're building a system, and when we go on site to do a security audit, which we do periodically, one of the things we'd like to use is the 20 critical security controls. So if you want a free audit, just kind of go look at this link down here. It was developed by SANS, and they're just guidelines of what you should have in your system in order to make it secure. And the first four, or the first bunch actually, are really very basic, but they're not hard, but they are hard to implement, I would say. So I'm in a critical control 1. Do you have an inventory of who's authorized to be on your network? I don't know many companies that actually do. So how do you know if someone unauthorized is on there if you don't know who's authorized? I mean, it's pretty obvious. So devices and software. So to make those lists, so in all of our audits, those are almost always come back as something that they need to implement, need to understand. You can use Splunk to actually enforce some of these. And if you have an inventory of authorized devices, then you can look at the devices and see if they're in your list. And if something pops up that isn't, on a scheduled search, you can have it report to you. So especially when you have things anymore about bring your own device, things get more and more complicated on that front. Same thing with software. There are policies usually in place to try to keep people from installing bad things, but bad things get through anyway. So that's another one. Continuous vulnerability assessment and remediation, to have that all there. So those are the things that Splunk can help you enforce once you have, but it's not necessarily going to put these lists together for you. There are discovery apps that you can go out there, and it will discover a bunch of things, but it usually takes a little bit of manual intervention to say, is this right, is this a good one, is this a bad one? So you can discover what's there. There are apps to do that. But the enforcement is where Splunk really can come into play on how to do that. So let's see, next slide. So I'm going to branch out of that into one of the marketing bullets that Splunk has. Splunk says that it does not have a schema, and that is true. It does not have a schema. It applies basically structure to your data on the fly when you do a search, each time you do the search. So there's a certain schema that's always there, things that are like your source type, your timestamp, your host, and I think I'm missing one. But those are always there. But everything else was pulled out on the fly. So any of the IP addresses, anything about any of your status codes, if you've got a message ID for a ASA firewall, it's in there, or your log level, all of that's pulled out on the fly, which is great because you get a new log file format, or you get a new release of a particular firewall that changes the output format. You can respond to that, and you can make it work. That's the good part about it. The bad part about it is that pulling it out on the fly, you can pull it out on the fly in multiple different ways. So you might pull it out of a certain source file, the IP address with the field name of SRC. You might, or use someone else in a different type of file might pull it out as SRC_IP. Or you could find SOURCE, or you could find out any other combination of these, and it might not even be anything close. So while Splunk does not have a schema, and it will be able to do whatever you want as far as pulling information out, it is very convenient to pull it out according to a common information model. A SIEM is what they call it. I don't know how to pronounce that, because if you pronounce it SIM, it sounds like an SIEM, and then so you get. So I'm going to say a common information model, or just a SIEM. So if everyone adheres to the common information model, then we get a lot more leverage out of the information we get. So one of the things I look at is when I install an application, like that has a technology add-on. A technology add-on is basically a way of gathering information, pulling it in, and breaking it up into fields, events and fields. I like to look at that and make sure that it conforms to the common information model, because then I know that my ASA firewall log that says SRCIP is going to match whatever, maybe my application log that says has a source IP in it as well. And so that they all match together, and then once you have that, you can do correlations very easily. So that's the need for the common information model. And so we're all talking about the same thing. It's not really a schema, but it's kind of a schema when it comes down to it. It makes things much easier to search over. Not only that, but there's an app out there called the Common Information Model app on Splunk that will have lots of searches built in if you are doing apps, if you're pulling in information that conforms to the CIM. So you get a lot of searches for free in that sense, building data models and things like that. So here's a little more detail on that. We've got the definition of it. So basically, there's a bunch of things that says, different alert models, different network traffic models. They're all out there, and it says what fields you should have, what things should be tagged as, and it just makes a kind of a common denominator where everyone can be talking about the same things. And various apps then can search over all the data simultaneously. Originally, there was one particular vendor that had two apps out there that assumed something was named something completely different. So you couldn't run both apps. They were incompatible with each other. So you had to go in, and one of the good things about apps, I might add, is that you can go and change any of them that any way you want to. So you'd have to go in and change one of the apps to assume the data is in the view that the other app had. So, or there's a couple of other things you can do. You can do aliases and things as an admin. But the common information model kind of puts everybody on the same ground as far as that goes. Now here's a closer look at the network traffic one. So network traffic should have an action for things. It should be allowed, blocked, dropped, or unknown. And then, so the field name would be app, bytes, bytes in, bytes out, blah, 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 down the list. So it's all in there. And any more apps that are coming out are very good at conforming to this. So once you learn the application model, you always know to look for bytes in as opposed to some other abbreviation or some other spelling of it, or dest as opposed to destination, or dest IP, or dest name, something like that. So what I wanted to do is do a quick security workbench demo when it comes down to it. One of the examples we have, and this kind of drives home the point that you don't need enterprise security to use Splunk for security. Since we're here in Colorado, there was a CSO for Colorado. There was a featured Splunk security speaker, and after he finished his Splunk security speech, he dropped by the Splunk for Enterprise Security booth, and he didn't know what it was. But he was doing these great things and all of these things with Splunk security. And so they kind of drives the point home that you can do great things with security without the enterprise security app. So let me go ahead and publish my screen over here again. Share application. After this, we'll go to a lab again. So we're almost done with me talking here for a little bit. There we go. I'm still on the other page. I'm going to go click on search. That will get me back to the original search bar. And then there we go. Myself organized here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go and say, I'm going to look, so data, individual events can be tagged, and a tag is kind of a category of what they belong to. I happen to know that in this implementation and in the common information model, there's a tag called vulnerability. So I'm going to say tag equals, if I can spell this right, vulnerability, vulnerability. So I'm going to put that in there and see what Splunk comes up with right now. That's probably a bad thing to do because I am over all time. I'd rather not be over all time. I'd rather be in, let's say, the last, let's go with the last 60 minutes. Let me clear these out real quick. I've got some scripts that are not running well. I have to figure out what's going on with that, but that doesn't affect our things here. So, over the last 60 minutes, we have 66 events, and you can see they all happened in 1 minute in our interface here. So that's great. I want to know, look at the severity ID of this. So I happen to know in my data that I've got a severity ID, that's signature, severity. And I want to know the ones that are the high severity ones. So I'm going to go over and click on that. You see what I did in my search bar up here. It now said severity is equal to 5. So it actually put it up there. And so there are 9 events that fit that category. So what I would like to know is what the vulnerability tag is see what systems are vulnerable. So what I'd really like to know is I would like to know the IPs that fit that. And so I'm going to use the search language this time to show what those are. So I'm going to go tables, make a table of the destination IP. Put that in there. Let that come back. And so these are the 9. These are the IPs, the 9 IPs that have been scanned and that have revealed that they have some sort of vulnerability. So that's the list of machines I'm kind of concerned about. Well, what would be really nice to know is how many machines, have any of these machines undergone an attack? So I'm going to use, now this is a more advanced Splunk language, and I'm just showing you this just to show you things that are capable of it. I wouldn't expect you to know how to do this at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what I have here, I'm going to turn this into a sub-search. So it's going to take those results, and then I'm going to add to it the tag attack. So what that's going to do is that's going to take that list, and this takes a while to run, and I don't know with this many people on the server how this is going to work. It says no results yet found. We'll get there. I do have it just as a safety valve. I went ahead and ran it over here in the same way that they had the results out to make sure in case it took a long time. In this case, it had 73 events. But the idea is now it's now going to look for any events that have the tag attack on them that apply to any of those IPs that were in the sub-search. So the sub-search returned 9 of them. So we can see that there are 73 events that included one of those IPs that had a vulnerability on it from our scan. So those would be, in my mind, a very high priority. Just got canceled. Nice. I'll go back to the one I'm running currently. A very high priority to go and look through those particular events. So in this case, it's still running, but I've got 22 events in this particular time sample of that. So those would be machines that we definitely need to look at and try to understand if they've been compromised. So this is core Splunk. We are not using an application. This is just looking at the data and what's out there. And if you know your data, you can now write things like this. You can save them off. You can save them. You can write dashboards against them. You can build your own dashboard, your own panes of glass, one pane of glass, that everyone likes to say, with the custom searches of exactly what you want to see. So, core Splunk can be used in that way. And I've been talking too much, running out of time. So let me drop off of this. We're going to go over to the second lab. So we're going to add some things to the security demo. I always laugh when I see this one. I hope we don't offend anybody from Canada. Canada is such a benign entity that I just can't see them getting upset about that. But that's one of my favorite taglines. So hopefully it's not offensive to you. So we're going to the second lab. Lab 2. I'm going to add to the security dashboard about 10 minutes worth. I'm putting through another search and give you more of a chance to build up that dashboard by adding, in this case, looking at some intrusion detection with Bro. So it is roughly 5 after. I'm going to look at 15 after. We'll come back and see where we're at that point. So go ahead and work on that lab. I'm going to post the return time over here, and I'll check back in a minute. I just got to the chat. It looks like that was pretty, my browser may be pretty small, so let me go ahead and I will increase that. So thanks for the feedback. All right, that was about 10 minutes or so. Honestly, I would, when you leave the webinar, you'll get a survey request, and one of the things I'd be interested in is to note how the server performance was for you guys as you went through all this. So if you could add that to maybe a comment at the bottom, that would, the server performance was good, was bad. That helped me out because we're just trying to make sure things are sized, and this is bigger than we've done before. So we'll look at the performance information on the box as well, but there's nothing like first-hand experience on that front. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Note that the lab will be open for business until 10 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time, which would be midnight Eastern Time, 9 o'clock Pacific Time. So you can work on it later if you need to. I want to make sure we get through our material. I'm going to go through this next section pretty quickly because I've talked about it a lot up front, so I don't see the need to go through a lot of slides, and we'll get right to the demo with kind of the walkthrough of the Enterprise Security app. I'm not going to read all this slide to you. It's what a SIEM actually is, looking at threat detection. So Enterprise Security, Splunk for Enterprise Security competes in the SIEM world, and it does pretty well as far as the data collection there. So you can read that at your leisure. So we talked about this a little right up front, a little earlier, that some of the limitations of existing SIEMs, they aren't really meant to handle big data. Some of them do a very good job, but then you get above maybe a terabyte a day, and they start breaking down, and searches never return, and it takes hours and hours and hours to get things back. So Splunk is built on a big data platform. This is, again, these are slides that were developed actually in conjunction with Splunk. So this is a lot of marketing type material. I don't apologize for it because it's accurate, but that's kind of got the spin to it. So it limits the view of the security threats to what it's looking for, reasonably inflexible from you need an update to change things like that. Sometimes it can be very difficult to deploy and manage, and oftentimes you have multiple products, you need multiple solutions in order to make it work. So there's limitations. Some of them are better than others, and so your mileage may vary on that. The idea with Splunk is that we take all of the information we've got, things even from online services like Twitter. You can take a Twitter feed into Splunk. I don't know how many SIEMs that can take a Twitter feed, but that may be part, someone saying that they're having problems, having issues. There's sentiment analysis tools in Splunk that you can pull that in and actually make that part of your analysis if you want. So it can bring in any data that you want to look at. So I'm just going to look through that one. This one I'm going to go very quickly as well. The idea here from the Magic Quadrant, if you're familiar with that, you can see that Splunk started out in 11. Down here, it moved up to here in 2012. In 2013, it ended up in the main competitors. Just, I don't know, put a lot of stock in this, but it does show kind of a trend and kind of where it's been at in the last couple of years. So it's definitely been a priority with Splunk to increase the performance and the usability of the enterprise security product, and it looks like they've gotten good results as far as Gartner is concerned. Again, any one thing is not too impressive, but it kind of shows a trend that there has been some awards that it's garnered in the last couple of years, 2012, 2013. I don't know anything in 2014 yet as far as that goes. We're not, but we're not through with 14, so we'll see what comes up. So Splunk differentiators. It's a single product which works cross-platform and cross-vendor. So it's only software. It's not an appliance. You can install it on commodity hardware, so you don't need to buy. That's actually I would give that a two-edged sword in the sense that you can put it on commodity hardware that's cheaper, but then you have, well, software, is it a hardware problem or a software problem? There's no one accountable source for that. So you kind of got to keep that in mind as well. It is quick to deploy. Relatively speaking, you can get enterprise security up and running in 2 weeks without too much problem, whereas sometimes it takes months to get all of the databases and everything all hooked up with a SIEM, a traditional SIEM. Big data architecture, open platform.
you can actually connect to Splunk via a Java program if you want to, and pull things in. If you want to do that, it's very customizable as well. And this is actually, the bottom point is actually a very interesting point. If you're collecting all this data, it certainly would be nice to be able to use that data beyond security and to get more on your more return on your investment. And so from a business standpoint, you can look at it from a bunch of different angles where a SIEM doesn't allow that. So different differentiators there. All right, that gets us over to the demo, and I'll just bring up my screen again. I have increased the font size, so hopefully this will be a little easier to read. So sorry if that comment has been up there for a while and I didn't get to it. There we go. That should flash over here sometime soon. Okay, so this is where I left off with a bigger font this time. Hopefully, let me bring up my chat window. Hopefully that will be a little easier to read for everyone. Okay, so I'm going to go over now, and I'm going to take this app drop down over here in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to go up to the. I will probably have more options than you because you can see I'm administrator, and so administrator has more visibility. Everybody on your server, everybody's account is a power user, so you don't have quite the visibility I have. So I'm going to go to the enterprise security app over here. Bring that up, and we'll just take a look at it. This is the home screen. The home screen doesn't show you much. The security posture is where we end up going the first time to kind of see what's going on the environment. So bring that up. So that's coming up. I want to give a couple of definitions. First of all, I want to say a lot of these Splunk enterprise security talks about notable events. They don't talk about issues. They don't talk about things because those are emotionally charged things. A notable event is something that happened, some result that was returned by one of its correlation searches, and we'll talk about that in a minute. What correlation search is. But it's a result that was returned by a correlation search that bears more attention. It may not be a problem, but it might be. I hit at one place that there was excessive admin logins. And they're all panicked about it, but the excessive admin logins were done by the fax machine. And no, the fax machine should not be logging in as admin, but it was. But that's not probably a security problem. So that's why notable event is probably a good word for it. It takes kind of the emotionally charged issue word, or it doesn't necessarily make it sound like it's a problem because it may or may not be when it comes down to it. A correlation search is a search looking over all of the data, trying to figure out different conditions that might be going on in the system. So it's just a search when it comes down to it, but correlation search is what they call it. Take a little tour of this particular application, or this particular screen. First thing is you see up here is your indicators across the top. Access notables, endpoint notables, network notables. It's got all of these. Note that they all have red arrows going up next to them. That is because the number that is represented there is in comparison to the number that was there yesterday. I started this server today. There are no numbers there yesterday, so they're all assumed to be 0. So if you're in a steady state, a lot of times those will be green, or they would be up and down. It wouldn't be that high. So this is showing the delta from yesterday. So and also note that we're working with a data generator. We're not working with real systems. When it comes down to it, they're actually being generated by Python scripts. So the data that's in here is probably not really reflective of exactly what a system would look like. So there are conditions built in here to tell stories and things like that to look through. And it's not what you'd probably see in a steady state operating system. So you can change these on this page if you want. You can go up to edit, and I think I counted them. There are like 70 or so in this list of different things you can put up there on there to look at and to try to notify you of, so you can customize that and you can add what you want. So I'm not going to change anything here. I just want to kind of point out that that's what's there and that's what the red bars are. Notable events by urgency. It's fully customizable as to what events are urgent and what are not, and we can look at that here in a little bit. We'll drill down and look into it. But so this is just kind of a summary of what's going on and the critical, high, medium, low. Note that everything is hot, so you mouse over it, you can get the exact number as far as that goes. Notable events over time. So this is all just kind of a summary of what's going on, a little spark line of what's happening. Note that it's flat lines before I turned on the server, so you can tell when the server came up and the different information after that point. So the different event sources, so there's different IPs, top notable events are on this side. So this is kind of a summary type screen of how to do things. So let's go ahead and click at this point on the, and you can follow along if you want, or you can just watch. That doesn't matter to me. I'm going to click on the critical bar here. That will drill us down into the incident review. And it will pre-populate some of the data in here so that you can see specifically the critical events. So it populates here. So you can see down here, first of all, note this little spinning icon over here on the side. This takes a very long time to finish, and it's a real-time search, so I don't think it's ever going to finish when it comes down to it. So in order to get to some of the links, like the view details link over here we're going to go to, I need to click on the checkbox here to finalize the search. So just stop searching, stop my real-time search, and then once that comes back, once it's finalized, you can now see that view details are now actually links that I can get to are enabled. So that's one thing you'll have to do in your lab activity too when we get there, is to click the check mark to stop the search. The idea is that search is going on constantly and that it'll pop up as things happen. So we're just going to take a look at a couple of the things on the screen. These are the events that actually came back. The one I'm going to concentrate on is the one here that's got the Hacksaw on it over here. First thing I'd like to look at is if you check this box on the side, on the left-hand side, and you go up to edit selected events. So I selected the event down here. I'm going to edit it. I just wanted to show you that this actually has a little bit of workflow in it. It's not very deep as far as that goes, but if you wanted to say, okay, this is an in-progress event, we're looking at this notable event, the urgency, if I can move that, you can't really read it behind there, but the urgency is what's listed in this column, urgency. If I change one might be, so this should pre-populate. This should pre-populate with critical. There's no reason that it should be blank. But if I change it from critical into something else, it'll fall off this list because it no longer fit my filter of critical. So I'm not going to change that. The owner I'm going to assign to myself, and then I'm just going to put a comment called investigating. I can type ING update. So now if you, when it comes back from this, should update the, oh, there it goes. You run the search again. So you can see that when we ran the search before, if I had changed it from critical to urgent, it would no longer fit my, where it goes, this urgency critical filter up here. I'd lost my event. I couldn't find it again. So there's Hacksaw again. You now see this in progress. It's assigned to SC Anderson. And so there's a little bit of workflow in there that you can play with. So I'm going to hit the checkbox over here because it's going to stop that search and I'll be able to get to my view details is where I'm really wanting to go. So I'm going to click on view details over here. And there is a truckload of information associated with this particular event. First of all, one thing is that you can see the correlation search right here that was actually running. So that's the correlation search that caused this event to be created. So you can go and look at it, and because occasionally you'll get false positives. I'll just click on it right now. It actually pops up another tab in my browser here. So we'll go over to what the actual definition of the correlation search, and I can actually change this right here to be whatever I want it to be. So if it was making a false positive or something of that nature, I can tune this to be what I need it to be. Other things you can see here are time ranges that it runs. You can change that. You can see the cron schedule. As far as what I was telling you earlier, you can actually run on the cron if you know how to set those up. Those are very, very flexible. The severity is high. You could actually change it to whatever you wanted to. The default owner, when it fires, is administrator. You could change that. So all these are, I'm not going to go through everything here. There's actually, you can set up alerts and go through how long it stays, things like that. So there's a lot of flexibility in the correlation searches that you can modify and make them what you need them to be. So I'm going to go ahead and close this tab because I don't really want to change anything here. Then there's other information, things like all these little triangles down here have actions associated with them. So, and where's my IP? There's one IP. So this particular IP, if I drop that down, and open it up to where I can go to different things, like I can do a Google search on it, have it pop up a window with a Google search. All of these different tools are kind of built in to be able to look at, do a vulnerability search for it. You can actually go over to the Asset Center, which is actually part of the Splunk, the Splunk Enterprise for Security application. So you can go and look at it there. So there's lots of different ways you can dive in and look at pieces of that particular event. Things like you can look up Google Hacksaw. You can all do this by hand. They're convenience functions, but they're just handy to have. Convenient to be able to get them. Okay, so that's kind of a look at the notable events and kind of how you do it. There's another drop down over here that allows. Let me hide the details, make it a little easier to look at. So I'm going to look at the actions associated with this particular event, as opposed to what we were looking at before were the actions associated with individual fields. This is one for the actual event, and for some reason it decided to close that. Do that again. One of the things we can do is we can do an IP Viking search. That's a third-party tool. So I'm just going to click on that. This one actually popped it up. It's configurable to whether it pops it up in a new tab, the same tab, or a new window. This one pops it up into a new window. That's how it's set up to do it. So, but it actually is now looking at this particular IP, and via IP Viking in here, it's going through and saying, well, this is the internet service provider for that. It's in Illinois, Sparta. It's got longitude and latitude for it. All sorts of pieces. It's a botnet is where it's that particular IP. Different risk factor associated with it. It's a service provided by IP Viking, but it's convenient that you can jump out and do that type of thing from enterprise security. All right, I'm going to go back to the top here. So that was kind of the incident review, kind of an overview of that. We're going to run out of time, so I'm just going to give you some highlights of some of these things. Predictive analysis is kind of a cool section to be in. So if I go ahead and go over to that tab, and I look at the network traffic. So these dialogues themselves populate according to what you select. So if I'm going to go ahead and select network traffic here, and then that will populate this next one. It's waiting for input. There we go. So now we've got that one. So let's look at DNS traffic, and we'll leave the others as their defaults, and just measure over the last 24 hours. We'll see. Okay, so it's waiting for data. Waiting for data, waiting for data. This is where I get concerned about how busy the server is. So what it does is it actually takes the line, so taking the count of DNS traffic in the network traffic category, and it's plotting it on a graph. But then it also has a prediction of where it should be. You can see the top of it is the dashed line, the bottom of it is the other dashed line. Starts out with a really tight prediction, and then things start going outside of its prediction. And it starts to adjust its prediction accordingly, but it notes every time it was outside of its prediction, it notes it in this table down here. So in general, it bumps it up when it saw it go up, and then it expects it to be within this category, and then it drops to the bottom, and you'll get another one that says it's now below. And it was 5 below, or the value was 5, and it was predicted to be 10. So it was much lower than that. So it gives you kind of an analysis of what it expects given the patterns of traffic that it has seen in the past. So that's kind of an interesting tool to use. Event investigators. Let's look at the asset investigator. And I've got an IP, a specific IP I'm going to look for. There's 10.11.36. Where is it? 36.20, I guess it is. It's .20. So I'm going to do a search on that, and I'm going to narrow it down to that particular IP. So I've told it in the background we have a CSV at this of what IPs are for what, and then this particular IP has been categorized as critical in the trust domain. But then we were looking at this is the authentication. I'm going to center it a little better so you can see a little bit more. That's what happens when you bump up your screen size. You lose real estate. The authentications that have happened against it. Any changes that are in there. If we're looking at change controls and change systems. The threat list activity. So in this case, there was one event, on through here, the number of threats that it was flagged for that particular asset, the different IDS attacks that are listed according to it, malware attacks, and the notable events associated with it. So all of these things go and kind of profile what happens on that IP. So on that particular asset, on that particular machine. So that's a tool that's in there. Let's see what time I've got. 38. All right. Similarly, you've got identity investigation, so you can look at the identity information associated with a particular identity, be it the Hacksaw identity or some other identity. So if I don't know if it's, I'm not going to type it correctly, so I'm not going to worry about that. We don't have a lot of time to go through. Just when it says all changes here, we're looking at just. I got a question. We're looking at the change controls. If you're monitoring change control jobs, especially on the asset tab. Let me just go back over to that. Where am I? Event asset. It's looking at, was there a change ticket? Was there a change made to this configuration, the configuration of this machine? So it's mainly configurations to the machine. So the idea is a change was made at maybe 0500 hours, and then lots of stuff happened. Well, that way you can kind of guess that maybe it was the change that caused them. So that's what kind of all changes stand for. No results is good in this case, or it's not necessarily bad. No results means that this machine has not changed, that the configuration of this machine has been consistent throughout this particular machine throughout the time frame. All right, so advanced threats. Let's list the threat activities. I'm just going through what's available on enterprise security, and just kind of noting that it would be very hard for you to make something this complex. It'd take a lot of effort to do it. So it's definitely a product that has value. Whether it has enough value for you, you have to decide. Like I say, all of the searches that are written behind it that populate this, they're just searches, and you can write your own, and you can do whatever you want and make your own screens. And so this has a lot of functionality. It's very handy, but it's up to you as to whether it's enough to warrant purchasing the product. So I'll leave it at that. Again, I would say that the price is license dependent, so I can't tell you how much it cost you. So I'm not sure exactly if it's a percentage model, exactly what the percentage is either. So you'd have to contact the sales guys. I'm more of the technical driving guy for that. So looking at various threats over time, you can see that there's a lot of this particular most active IP is here. You can look through there. You can look at the Norse dark list lookup. So there's different information pulled in from other tools that you can work with. Another interesting one is the, I don't know if I can remember where it's at, user agent. There it is. So the user agent is typically what you're using to connect to the system. So whether it's your browser or what, browser, sometimes it's a mobile device, sometimes it's in this case Mozilla 4.0. Most of these are Mozilla when it comes down on this one. But here are all the user agent strings. So the user agent string describes what the browser was. So it's Mozilla 4.0. A bunch of information about it, the build number, things like that. So it shows you who is using what to connect. And you might ask the question, well, why do I care? A lot of times an attack is actually used, the user agent is part of the attack, so they masquerade as something else. And this actual data, the data gens that are behind this, the Shockwave Flash user agent is being used to access, to tunnel information out when it comes down to it. So that's what the story is built into this particular one. You can see that 10,000 is an outlier here, that this user agent is being used probably more than it should be. And it's a very small user agent. Typically they are longer. So it's just got a couple of things that look suspicious. And in this case, it's built into the data gens that someone is tunneling information out using the Shockwave Flash user agent. So I wouldn't have time to go into all the details on that. So there's a lot of things. I'm going to probably let you go ahead and just tool through this yourself, however you want to, and look at it. I just kind of wanted to give you kind of the highlights and kind of what you're looking at. Usually you start out at the security posture side of things, and you click on things and drill down into it from there, and on things that are interesting to you and look on through. So we do have a lab associated with this that uses the enterprise security. It takes a couple of minutes. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, go back to the slides, and what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the slides here real quick and then leave the remaining time for you to play with the demo or whatever you want to do. But we'll go ahead and wrap up, and then you can use the rest of the time however you see fit. So we kind of looked over core Splunk in a security sense, Cisco Security Suites. We didn't actually look at that. That's installed if you want to look at that, by the way, and enterprise security. One thing I did want to point out, if you're looking at purchasing Splunk, a good place to go is Tech Validate. It's not Splunk. It has case studies for different technologies and the problems they solved and the issues they had and and evaluations of how they thought things went. So it's a third-party tool that you can use to sell your case if you're wanting to get Splunk in and say this is where other companies have used it and how they work. Some of them actually mention their name, but they at least have a category like major financial institution or educational or government or things like that. Webinars that are out there already that you can go through. These are on the slides I gave you, so you can go to that slide and cut and paste and look at it. I'm going to turn you loose here on the lab here in just a second. I have to do my closing marketing spiel, but again, we are GTRI. We're happy to provide these for free with the knowledge that a certain percentage of people do need to have professional services or increased licensing or training. And so if you are interested in any of that, please feel free to contact me or to contact Avi. Again, here is my email. Put it out there. The lab is going to stay up for a significant time afterwards, 12 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Pacific. So if you want to play with it after work, that would be fine. Just come in and poke around and do what you want. You can finish the labs or however you want to do it. I'm going to stay on the line again and probably come back on at straight up on the hour when we're officially over and officially close us out, but I don't really have any more information I'm going to be adding. I'm going to be here to answer questions or here to just kind of support people as they need it. So you're free to go ahead and do the last lab or not, depends on how you want, and use your time however you see fit. So appreciate you guys joining, and I will, again, join in about 15 minutes to close us out officially, but I hope this was helpful for you, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help you out on the Splunk side. Thanks.